We're often moaning, are we not, about how our heritage is disappearing, how some of our traditions and customs are vanishing down the plug hole, and in fact that other people are coming into the country and almost supplanting our history, our customs and the way of life with theirs, and they're setting up their buildings and doing their religious things, and we're all sort of aghast, and we meet up and say, oh golly, look at this, isn't it terrible? And yet I wonder if perhaps some of this isn't actually our own fault. It does seem that we no longer seem to embrace our own traditions and customs and the good things of our country. I mean, I'm principally talking about England, because England does seem to be a country that is being eradicated and is kind of the, I don't know, the sort of the dumping ground of the world, that everybody else comes here and plants their bits of traditions and customs until we no longer have anything of our own. And yet in the past, you know, we had some wonderful things. People used to do the English country dancing. People used to meet in the pubs. Do you remember the pubs in the old days that used to have skittles and bowling alleys? They had darts and all sorts of things like that. People would play dominoes and all sorts of different games around the different parts of the country. Each region had its own thing. Why, for example, just near me, there's a pub that well, it used to, it's just stopped now, it's got a bit of a gallery in there at the moment, but I'm hoping it comes back, and it had a game called Toad in the Hole. And this is a Sussex game from what I understand, and the idea is that you have these big brass coins, which are the toads, and you throw them at a certain regulated distance into a hole in a box, effectively, but the box is surrounded by lead that over time starts out flat but slowly gets curved, making the game more and more difficult. And of course there's a scoring mechanism associated with it. And it's a nice little gentle pastime that if you're nipping into the pub for a swift half, you can have a friend with you and play a game. And in Sussex there are competitions around like so many of these things. And the lovely Julia and I, just on occasion, we would nip into the pub, have a swift half and play this, and it was the most enjoyable game. I'm not saying that we were terribly good at it, but it was just a bit of fun, and other people would say, oh, I didn't know about that, and we would talk to them about it. And all the pubs had these sort of weird and wonderful games that you could play, and it was a way of meeting people socially. And in fact, only yesterday the lovely Julia and I met up in a park near us, and there's a bowling green, and we were watching these two old duffers, lovely blokes, going backwards and forwards playing a game of bowls, you know, the old sort of thing. And it was most enjoyable. And the two guys came over and said, would you like to have a go? And I said, oh, that's very kind of you. And we actually spent about half an hour or so learning to play bowls. Now, a lot of people would think that, oh yeah, but bowls is an old people's game. But wait a minute, wasn't it Francis Drake who was playing bowls at the advent of the Spanish Armada? Now, he wasn't an old duffer, he was a young sprightly bloke ready to go and fight the Spanish and bring back loads of gold in the same adventure that he went off and did. So I don't think it is, but in recent times, many of these things, they've become the realm of those people who remember those games. A lot of people these days are playing different kind of games, electronic games. They're staying inside behind their screens. They're not getting out into the few days of sunshine that it seems that we are actually permitted to have. Okay, some people come out and have a go at football, but there used to be so many different other kind of games. Maybe cricket as well is another one that people have still brought out. But people had all sorts of wonderful old traditional games that brought people together. Families and friends would be pitching in a friendly way against one another. But also other traditional things. I'm thinking of things like the old apple bobbing at Halloween. Who does that these times? Yes, you might go and pick a pumpkin and carve out a face, and that's kind of it. It's all very tokenism. If we want to stop moaning about how our heritage and our way of doing things is disappearing, perhaps it is down to us to bring them back, to engage with them, to come out from our little houses and instead of staying inside, get out onto the greens, re-establish ourselves. Again, it's a marvellous way of integrating and being social with one another, bringing some sandwiches and a flask of tea or a couple of beers, not to the point where you're getting a bit blatted, but that you can enjoy and meet people that you haven't met before. The sad thing is with the bowling greens where I live is there used to be 5 of them, and we used to have the national tournaments there. But over the years, because the old people have died out and younger people have just not been interested, they've seen it as a sort of an old person's game, there are only 2 of the bowling greens left. One has become, I think, a bit of a wild meadow, I was told. The other one is more of a children's playing area. And one of them, goodness, has now become a place that you can just walk your dog and allow it to do its doings there, which does seem a great shame for somewhere that was set out in the Victorian period to be this rather beautiful and impressive area that people could get involved with. So I don't know, maybe instead of moaning about other people coming in, supplanting our history and our customs with their ways, that perhaps we should be going, hang on a second, let's just embrace what we used to do and start bringing back our own customs and proudly wave our flag and proudly play these games and proudly move away from the electronic type of things where we're stuck inside and we are playing solo on our own in our bedrooms away from anybody else. We know that it's good for us to be in social contact with real people where we can discuss the affairs of the day and moan about other things rather than perhaps our customs and traditions disappearing. What do you think?